Smart Cities not a place. It's about improving the lives of people that live in cities.
You're listening to Smart Thinking, a podcast from WSP. I'm Matthew Marson, taking you on a journey into smart buildings. In this podcast, we're thinking big. It's all about smart cities. Joining me in the studio is Global Director of Urban Development and Smart Cities Lead at Siemens, Julie Alexander. Julie works with cities around the world showcasing the role of infrastructure and integrated technological solutions in urban development. Her recent book, Smart Cities, Cities in the Digital Age, illustrates the importance of digitalisation in the field of critical infrastructure. Julie is a member of the Smart London Board, Institute for Future Cities Board and Urban Living Partnership Advisory Board. Julie is also the chair of the Managing Board of UK Collaboratorium for Research in Infrastructure and Cities. And to jump straight in, Julie, in your opinion, what is a smart building and why should we care?
Well, hi, Matt. So smart buildings, I think, is an evolving topic. As technology moves forward, we're seeing more and more interesting solutions for buildings. So for me, smart buildings is very much about connectivity, how we extract information from a building, how users can use the building more effectively. Everything from sensing occupancy to sensing temperature, indoor air quality, all of this data now can be extracted from buildings and used in ways that makes managing those buildings easier, more affordable, more convenient for the users. So it's very much about the integration now of digitalisation to buildings.
And with that, kind of as your opinion on it, why would we care about it?
Well, I think there's so much potential, and I think that's yet to be fully discovered. So depending on whether you're a private building owner, occupier, or it's a public building, I think there's different potential opportunities. So as a resident or a homeowner, you might be more interested in about how do I save money on energy? How can I manage my heating, lighting when I'm not in the building, when I'm away from home? So digitalization, smart buildings gives you that capability to have more control, more understanding of how you operate your building and its systems. Similarly, for commercial buildings or for public buildings, there's all kinds of opportunities to manage and optimize systems, cooling, heating, lighting, but also understanding how people move in a building. And I think this is a real opportunity for commercial offices. So are building spaces occupied? There's so much demand for commercial space in buildings today, and yet there's a huge amount of space that's sitting empty. So by correlating that data and pulling those data sets together, we can begin to optimize building spaces more effectively. So it's all about understanding how buildings are being used, who's using them, what are the systems, how can you use buildings more efficiently, more flexibly. And I think smart buildings really brings us those kinds of opportunities.
Do you think it's all about the potential?
I think it is, yeah. I don't think we've fulfilled that potential today. We've had building management systems for some time, which helps understand a building in real time, control that building. I think what we need to move to is more of a predictive or prescriptive approach. So how do we know when a building will fail? When do we order that spare part that we're going to need? Ideally, not when that item has broken, but actually sometime in advance. So you're ready, you're making those changes before any failures occur. So I think the potential really is in that predictability and also understanding how people use buildings differently. There's a lot of work out there at the moment about the future of buildings, the future of the workplace, how people want to operate in spaces differently. And I think that can really be advanced through understanding data from people, from building users, and from the building itself.
Let's up the scale now and talk about smart cities. What are they and how are they different to a smart building?
Well, a smart city for me is not a place, it's a concept, and it's very much about the integration of data, systems, how we communicate more effectively as citizens. So many people say, what's the smartest city in the world? Well, actually, every city has a different approach to their digital journey. And it's not about who's the smartest, who's the most connected. It's really still about how do you make things more efficient, more livable, more affordable? How do you attract investment into your city? And if you can do that more effectively through optimization of infrastructure or of communication capability, then really this for me is what Smart Cities is about. And so what I talk about with cities when we're speaking to mayors really is, what are your objectives? Are they environmental? Are they economic? Are they social? And how can you meet those objectives more efficiently through information capture, data correlation, data science, and really help them understand what's going on in the city so they can make better decisions. So it's really data-driven decision-making, optimization of systems, and more interaction between people and cities, and allowing the city to communicate more effectively with their citizens.
Do you see a future where cities will use this type of technology to actually compete with each other for residents?
Absolutely. And I think we're seeing signs of that now. So you do see cities saying, we want to be the most digital, the most innovative, the smartest city. And by that, I think they're sending a message to their communities, and that's not only residents, but also companies. They're saying, come and invest here. Come and set up your business, create jobs, create a new sector, a tech sector. Every city now wants their tech cluster. And I think they're seeing this as a real USP. Even private developers are saying, we want to do something with startups and creative digital communities. So I think this is the latest thing, and sustainability is still there as an underpinning message. But in so many cities, that's implicit now, and that has to be delivered. There's still a lot of investigation going on around what is smart, what is digital, and what does connected mean for us. And you see the first steps being made in broadband, using the 5G connectivity now, using different spectrum to connect different people, different devices. And so cities are beginning to test this out. Where do we start? How do we move forward? But absolutely, I think as with any kind of messaging or investment, cities really see this as an opportunity to up the ante in city investment and quality of life and creating good environments for people to live in.
Have you got an example of some of the issues that you've helped a client tackle?
Well, I think London's a great example. So many good things going on, and some of which are really driven by the city, others which are happening more naturally because of the community that's built up here. A really good example that I like to talk about is when we work with Transport for London, a world-leading transport agency, where we worked with them to optimise the Victoria line, the first of the metro lines we were working on in London. And what we did was install a digital signalling system that allows the trains to talk to the signalling systems. And this means that without human intervention, the trains can move faster through the tunnels, more closely together through the tunnels. And so now we move 1,500 more people every hour. What that means for the citizen is that you don't have to wait for the second or third train to come. As soon as you arrive on the platform, the train's there. So it's a very much almost invisible or hidden intervention, but people are impacted by that day to day. And I think this is the benefit of digital. It can happen in the background, but actually the users can really feel the benefit of it. So for me, Transport for London really leading the way, and it's always a pleasure to work with them on some of these more advanced and forward-thinking technologies.
Thinking technically, does the scale of a city add complexity?
Yes, I think you have to say that is the case, because if you were to take a city like London, we're in London now, you've got one Greater London Authority, but actually 33 boroughs who have services they need to deliver, budgets within which they need to do that service delivery, and each are slightly on their own journey. And I know the GLA are working to bring them all together through the London Office of Data Analytics, the London Office of Technology and Innovation. But actually, at that scale, it becomes very difficult because borough to borough, there are different needs and different requirements, different demographics. But if you are working with smaller cities, one of the key advantages there is there's fewer city officers to have these conversations with. And you'll find some of the city officers having multiple functions. So they might head up IT and traffic management. And it begins to make those conversations easier. You can begin to understand some of the operational challenges more easily. So I think simply on that management level, it's easier to work in smaller environments to get these things moving. But also on a geographic scale, there are different needs from one end of a big city to another. So I think, yes, from an organisational point of view, the technology could be the same across the city, but actually what they want to achieve with that technology could be very different.
Yeah, it seems to me that digital actually provides a good way to get people to collaborate. And the example that I've got, I was doing some work for a regional government, and they had real issue in predicting the amount of social housing that they needed to build, because they were made up of 7 different districts, all that had their own kind of different systems or way of trying to forecast that. But the actual pot of money and the responsibility came at the regional level. And because they didn't have the right systems and the right tools, they just found that a really onerous task. So it just goes to show what can be done in a smart city.
Absolutely. Well, we're seeing in the UK now mayors being appointed. So hopefully that will give some direction, some leadership around this topic.
Yeah. So if you were a city looking to go smart, what would be the top tips that you'd like to receive?
How to understand the operational challenges that we as the city are trying to tackle. So really getting down into the nitty-gritty of the day-to-day problems that the frontline staff are tackling. Who's taking the calls of complaints? How are these being resolved? How could we better resolve them through the use of digital? Of course, having that connectivity capability across the city is the number one check. If we install sensors, can we extract data from them? How do we bring that up into a capability, a tool, a platform, whatever you'd like to call that makes that data visible and understandable? You can collect data, but if you don't know how to read that data, it's still useless to you. So you have to have ways of bringing the data in and understanding it and getting the right people around you who can help you do that. And it's very much in this day and age about collaboration. No one agency or organisation can do this on their own. So understanding the ecosystem around the city, I think, as well, would be one of the first priorities.
Okay, so it's about understanding your processes, it's having data literacy, and it's being able to work together.
Absolutely.
A big thank you to Julie Alexander joining us from Siemens. In our next episode, we'll be talking to the head of building technology systems for Australia and New Zealand, Ranil Singh, about how he's using converged networks to make buildings smart down under. If something in this episode has piqued your interest, then have a chat with us. Email smart@wsp.com. You've been listening to Smart Thinking, a podcast from WSP. I'm Matthew Marson, and thanks for listening.